Closer to home, some experts are calling out the BC government for a 15% markup on legal pot sales. Tyler Orton with Business in Vancouver is joining us now with more on this. And Tyler, there are concerns that this will drive people to the black market.
Well, the real question is how do you convince people that are already using the black market for cannabis to migrate over to the legal market come October if in fact prices are going to be exponentially higher? The government just announced it's going to levy a 10% markup on legal cannabis. This comes in addition to the federal government's 10% excise tax, as well as the 5% GST and 7% PST. This doesn't even take into account the fact that Health Canada is also consulting right now with stakeholders about a potential 2.3% cost recovery fee on licensed producers. There's no such cost recovery fee for liquor, for example. So this is another interesting factor. But Deepak Anand, he is the vice president over at Cannabis Compliance Incorporated. He says that this most recent markup announced by the province is quite significant, much more than they were expecting, and it's going to directly impact the cost per gram. He's cautioning that the government should really be careful about how high the cost per gram goes, because otherwise you're just going to be pushing people away from the legal markets when they're already using the black market right now.
For sure. Also concern on this side of the border over threats of new auto tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump.
Yeah, you always have to look for those weekend tweets from the U.S. president. And over the weekend, he did warn that, look, the government of the U.S. is willing to issue more tariffs against Canada, this time targeting the auto sector. This is if Ottawa does not get in line with what the Americans want from NAFTA negotiations. He says that Canada's tariffs and trade barriers are just too high. He's happy to tax cars coming in. What's still unclear, though, is how exactly it would work from a practical perspective, because, of course, the auto sectors between the two countries, well, they're very intertwined because of supply chains. So you could imagine that would actually have impacts on consumer prices for Americans as well. Meanwhile, Republican Governor of Vermont, Phil Scott, he says the president's comments are, quote unquote, disrespectful. This follows a summit with New England governors as well as Eastern Canadian provincial premiers. And Scott says that Trump may just be using this as a negotiating tactic, but it's not one Scott says that he would ever use in negotiations with Canadian counterparts.
All right, the saga continues. Tyler Orton with Business in Vancouver on this Monday. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you, Tanya.